All right, you guys have been asking me to cover more West Coast videos, and as promised, I told you I'd cover a video on Bino and Blxst. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Let's get into it. All right, so before we go step by step on how to make these beats and break this down, let's hear the full beat first. All right, so as you can see, we start with the intro, we drop into a little hook, and then we go into the verse, a little break right here, back into the hook, then the rest of the beat. So the main thing that you want to get down with these beats is going to be your chord progression. So this is the chord progression right here. I have a simpler version over here that I created to show you what it is without inversions. But as you can see, we are in A sharp minor. So if you come over here, you go to helpers, scale highlighting, we're in A sharp minor. Inside Keyscape, this is the preset I used right here. So let's hear that chord progression by itself, and then we'll hear the version of it without any inversions, and we'll break it down. And then the same exact chords over here, but just basic. So if you see over here, we're just working with 7th chords. So all I did to build this out was I started on the 1 of the scale, which is the A sharp, skip every other note. This would be our triad, and then we add the 7th in it, right? Because we have the 1, 3, 5, and 7. And if you count those out, here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the scale, the highlighting you're seeing. And then I went down to F, I built another 7th chord, and then up to F sharp and built another 7th chord. And then from here, all I did besides velocity was invert some of these things. So if you see the C sharp right here is inverted. So over here, I take it and we bring it up 1 octave. So you can select it with control, right click, and then control up arrow. And that gives us our first chord right here. And then over here, we have the C and the G sharp inverted. Take the G sharp C, bring them up, boom. Then we have the 2nd chord. So same chords, we're just doing inversions. We're playing the same chords, but we're playing them different. We're moving the notes around. And then over here, we have the F sharp, and the inversions that get made on this are the A sharp and the F. So we could take the A sharp, the F, and invert them. And now we have the same exact chord progression, but we have inversions. So that's really how I created that chord progression. Super simple, just 7th chords, depending on the 7th chords you want to do. I built off the 1 chord, the 5 chord, because F is the 5th note in that scale, but I went down an octave, and then the 6. So this is a 1, 5, 6. And then for the pad, it's actually a stock preset inside of Flex, which is native to FL Studio, and same chord progression as the keys, and then solo sounds like this. So that helped out a lot because both of those together sound like this. So once I had that going, I was like, cool, it's time for the bass line. So I went over to the bass. Let me show you what the bass is. It's inside of Nexus. And for the bass, it's pretty simple. We're following root notes here and here. And then we have middle notes that are a little bit different, like this G sharp, this D sharp, and this F over here. And then for these type of beats, you kind of want to have that plucked feel to it, where the couple of the notes are being held out, but the rest are kind of like a faster pluck. So this is kind of the rhythm that I went for it. And for me, the best way to get this to feel more real is to really just play it on the MIDI keyboard, and then I fix the velocities because I want the velocities to be very consistent with this bass. I want it to always be up front, but as you can see, things aren't directly on grid, and that helps out a lot more because if I were to type it in, just for me personally, I get a better feeling when I play it out. I can get more of these chops to sound a little bit more real. And then over here, these two, I just brought down in velocity so they're not hitting too hard because they're kind of just like a transition note that gets us back into this A sharp over here. So then after that, I added in these 2 leads. We'll go ahead and start with this one. Let me go ahead and play it real quick. So there's 2 leads that are going on with this. For this, again, I just use the MIDI keyboard and I try to figure out different types of melodies. And really for this, I just went down the scale. So if I go ahead and show you what we use for this, this first lead is going to be Flex again. It's this preset right here. And for these, all I like to do is figure out something that I can run down the scale with. Also using notes that are very close to each other to keep that tension, this F and this F sharp. We could have just had it like this. Let's get rid of this and let's put this right here. But adding in this F sharp that moves into the G sharp kind of helps give it a little bit of a bounce. And then next we add in this lead right here. And what's cool about that lead is it's literally just 3/0. So if you see, it's just the normal 3/0 when you bring it up, the sine wave. And then I went into here and created this envelope with the attack pushed up a little bit so that it doesn't directly start on it, and it kind of has like a nice smooth lead in. And then you can see the rest of the envelope I created with hold, decay, sustain, and release. And then I went into here, enabled this, and brought the slide up so we can slide the notes. And then we have a little bit of effect processing, which is going to be a reverb, EQ, and a delay. If I turn that off, sounds like this. Then bring it on. And we have a pretty cool lead sound. So I like to do that with 3/0. Sometimes you don't even need to use anything crazy. It's just a sine. And then we do a little bit on the volume envelope and then add some effects to it. And then for the lead, this is what we get. We'll break it down, but let's hear it first. So very simple again, just right back up the scale. We're using those notes that are close to each other, and then that same technique of going from the F sharp to the G sharp. And what I like to do is try to find little pockets where we can put the lead. So for this, we started on the first bar. Before the second bar starts over here, I caught the end of the first bar right into the second. And then for this, it's just reverse. So if we take this over here and we hit Alt-Y, you'll see that we're just going down the scale again. So I'm gonna show you on the MIDI keyboard. These notes are super close together. We have F, F sharp, and then G sharp. So I can create something with that. And I'll just sit there and try to figure something out. So for this is what I did. So there's that small gap you hear right here. And then over here, I just wanted to go back down the scale. So that G sharp, F sharp to F, and then we add in that A sharp, which brings us into that G sharp. So like this. So without doing too much, you can add a nice lead. Maybe try to find notes that are pretty close together and just mess around with gliding between notes and figuring out a nice little lead that you can add to it. So then after that, we get the drums. Let's hear the drums in solo. So a must for this is a rim shot, obviously, and that 3-pattern kick. We have a nice little crash. We have the stomp. I didn't add the reverse open hi-hat for this beat, but let's go ahead and break down the drums. So real easy, we're gonna have the rim on the 2 and 4. And then we have that 3-pattern kick, which is in a lot of Bino and Blxst songs. And then right before that rim hits right here, we have a nice little open hi-hat. Then we have a crash on the downbeat. Simple, nothing crazy. That repeats. As well as that open hi-hat. And then the next thing we have is the hi-hats. So an easy way to start these is to fill 4-step, not 2-step, and then kind of add in rolls where you think they're gonna sound good. So I like to have spacing. You'll see that there's some spacing going on. It's not going too crazy, but the rolls are falling a little bit before rims most of the time. Like right here, it's gonna fall in before the rim. And then over here, we have another hi-hat that kind of goes down. So the second bar of hi-hats is pretty different from the first bar of hi-hats. And the reason that I did that for this beat is I wanted it to stand out. I wanted it to have a swing to it, but not just be super repetitive. So this is only a 4-bar loop of hi-hats, but since it's separated and it's different, it's gonna add a lot to the beat. Over here on the last 2 bars, you'll see that I have these going on. And it's just this note that leads in and helps it sound a lot better with the velocities turned down. So it's a quick little hi-hat note that's gonna lead into the next one. With the velocity brought down, it adds a lot of swing. And since it's a pretty simple kick and rim pattern, it really helps out. And then to create this little drop right here, all I do is go over here, go into 3rd step, and then I'll kind of find the last little bit before we go into that next note. And I just go like this and find out where I want it to be. And then you can select them all right here with control and then left click and then right click right here and drag it down. And that will give it that falling effect. And then the last thing we have is the stomps, and the stomps are gonna come in on the down beats. And then this one has like a little triplet before it drops in. And then you'll also hear that I have some panning going on. And that's just taking these notes. I pan the first two a little bit, and then the last one's right in the center so it can fall back in. The hook, the first part of it doesn't have one, but the second part does. And then on the verses, the stomps kind of come in and out as I thought they would sound good. So really there's like three main factors that you're going to want to focus on for the melodies. It's a good chord progression, a nice lead. You want the lead to be not too busy and complement what's going on, have some space to it, and then a nice bass line, maybe a plucked bass, real bass. Depends what you want to go for. For this, I like to use like Nexus or like GMS has really good basses too, which is default in FL Studio. It's a stock plugin, I mean. And inside basses, you can find a lot of nice basses in here. Some really good basses that you can use if you don't have like Nexus or another plugin like that, or any of the other plugins you might see people use when making beats like this. So one more time, let's hear the full beat. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like this video, leave a thumbs up. You guys can follow me on all social medias at Lifestyle Did It. Make sure to hit my site, lifestyledidit.com, for everything else. Other than that, subscribe to your boy, push notifications. Thanks.